Hello everyone, welcome back for another video. I'm going to do some more rankings. If you didn't see, I've already put out an F2 video, and I'm hoping after this one to put out a little bit of an F3 video. But I just wanted to kind of go over things now that testing just finished about 4 hours ago. And so I could come up with at least a little bit slightly better judgment. And before we get anything into the bias, I decided I'm going to just rep and show off as much of the team's gear I have that I don't have bias, really. So I'm wearing my Williams stuff. I've got McLaren, Aston, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, AlphaTauri. Yeah, I don't have any Alfa Romeo stuff or Alpine. But how many teams did I just cover? 7. I'm missing one. I always forget one. But I didn't in my rankings, so let's get into this. So, came up with a little traditional board. This is going to be my constructors. I'll show this at the very end. And then a simple 20. Put them in a little grid. And let's run through it. Now that we've seen everything that's happened, let's start at 20, work our way up, and then I'll show the constructors at the end. So, starting in P20, I put Logan Sargent. I still think Williams is going to be at the back of the grid. It doesn't look like there was any significant changes or reason to suspect that they're deeply moving up. So between the two drivers, it was just pretty simple to put Logan Sargent at the back. Moving on to P19, I put Nico Hülkenberg. Now, I don't have as much faith in Nico as a lot of others are putting into him. Yes, he did decent back in like his Racing Point stint, but watching his 2 races last year in Saudi and Bahrain, it just doesn't seem like he has it anymore. And at least the first few races of the season, I think, are going to be very, very rough for Nico. And ultimately, I don't think Haas is making the major step that could potentially be expected with them with the new sponsor. I know they've got more money, but having more money doesn't actually equal more results necessarily. Haas doesn't have the proven history to show that they can put it really together, so I've put Nico in P19. In P18, I've put the other Williams of Alex Albon. He's a great driver, we all know that, and seen what he's been able to get out of that Williams, dominating. Granted, he was dominating Nicholas Latifi, so not really much of a measuring stick, but I think overall just Williams is going to be at the back. Alex will probably carry them to some points. I don't think there's going to be a driver that has 0 points at the end of the season, at least out of these 20 drivers. I think last year we actually had that too. I think because the only driver who didn't have points was Nico Hülkenberg and his incidents. That's not the right word. Instances. But yeah. So I think we're gonna have a grid where everyone scores again. There's gonna be circumstances, stuff will happen, and it's gonna be a great year. But overall, Williams will still be at the back. And along with them, we'll also have the other Haas of Kevin Magnussen. Another good driver. I think he will outperform Nico Hülkenberg. I know there's been a lot of talk of maybe Hülkenberg might win that battle because he's more consistent and a little less crash happy. But I think Kevin just still has a pure pace, especially at the beginning of the season when Haas could be more competitive before they fall off with the development like they always do. I think Kevin will get the odd good performance here and there. He's clearly a good driver, getting a pole position last year. But I just think every other team is going to be better than these 2 teams that I have at the back so far. Moving on to P16, I put Yuki Tsunoda. I haven't seen enough out of the AlphaTauri to really expect a big improvement. They look like they might be slightly better, but there's nothing to show that they've really move themselves up the grid, and Tsunoda has still never shown at any point in his 2 years yet any sort of consistency. So that's why I won't be shocked at all if he does get beat by De Vries, who, granted, I know he's technically a rookie, but De Vries has a lot of experience. I think that's going to come into play, and when he gets the opportunity, he gets it. Now, I haven't put him up much higher. I've only got De Vries just in P15. These two could honestly probably swap places, but I think this is the correct spot in this little grid for the two AlphaTauri drivers. I think they're going to be struggling similar to last year. Nothing's really shown that they've made massive improvements. So I can't really say I expect much other than the occasional great performance that they seem to have gotten in the past. Moving on to P14, I put Pierre Gasly. Now, I know the Alpines were good last year. They showed signs of being very, very fast. But this test made me nervous. I know it's just testing and we're not supposed to take the performances into account, but it seemed very stale. Like, I don't know how to look at it. This is a really bad edit, by the way. Alpine was the only team that didn't have updated photos. But yeah, it just seems like Alpine could be that team is just like leveled off, didn't really move up, didn't really move down. But then again, if you're not always moving up, you are going down. So I think that's kind of what's happening. And I think between the two drivers, I think there's going to be a little bit of a speed bump for Pierre. Like, just moving into a new team, his history of going to Red Bull and competition and all of that, I think there's just going to be a little bit of a hiccup. He'll get there eventually. But I won't be shocked at all if this first season is a little bit rough for him, as much as he's one of my favorite drivers on the grid now at this point, now that Danny's gone. So in P13, I've put Zhou Guanyu. Now, I know I did not rate his last season close to even as high as a lot of others did. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he was about level with Bottas by the end. No. When I ran all of my data, Zhou was just barely above Mick, in my opinion. Yes, better, but just barely. So, I'm not fully confident in Zhou. I think the Alfa Romeo does look like it could be better this year, and hearing all the reports of last year they were limited because they messed up their designs that didn't give them really room to develop. If they start up strong and they have a little bit more flexibility this season as they're claiming to, I think they should do better, and I think they'll be able to kind of hold on. Not really move up the grid, but I don't think they'll fall back to the bottom of the grid like they kind of were near the end of the last season. So that's why I can see Zhou Guanyu being about P13. That seems reasonable, and I think he will have a little bit of an improvement in his second season, which makes sense. You kind of have to expect it, no longer being a rookie. Moving on to P12, I put Esteban Ocon. So just the other Alpine in the list, and for a lot of the same reasons I was listing about Pierre. Like I was saying, they just seemed like they went flat on the development line. And for that, I think they'll move down a little bit. I know Esteban talked a lot of crap about Fernando as he was leaving, saying Fernando did no development of the car. But I don't think that's true. I think Fernando is a highly undervalued asset, clearly, since he's been in the sport this long. He has so much experience in developing the cars that I think Alpine is going to falter a little bit now that he's gone, and they seem to have lost their identity a little bit with all of the stuff with Alonso and who am I forgetting? Piastri. That's his name. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of an identity crisis in Alpine right now, especially considering that Almar hasn't even been there that long. All of the stuff throughout the entire team is still relatively new. This is one of those teams that's like, it could either really go up or absolutely blow up. Like, I'm not sure at all what's going to happen with Alpine. But to keep things moving, in P11, I put Oscar Piastri. Now, I know McLaren has not had a strong testing session, but I don't think there's going to be dramatic changes kind of thing between this season and last. Like, I know they've been down talking themselves, and even the testing did not look good, but I don't see a bad testing and all that. Like, they were a solid midfield car by the end of last season. I don't see them dropping down to like 9th or 8th on the grid or something like that. It's just because of a bad testing and a little bit of down talking. I think there's a little bit of sandbagging. McLaren always seems to like take things slow during practice sessions too. So I think it's kind of good to expect them. I don't think Piastri's going to beat Lando by any means. It's going to It's going to take him a little bit to get into it. Of course, it's his rookie season, and there's been reports for years now that the McLaren cars are hard to drive. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a hiccup, learning curve. It's a rookie, and so that's why I put Piastri in P11. Like, I do think McLaren will develop ahead of the Alpines. That's why I've at least had, well, now we can see that both McLaren drivers have jumped both Alpine drivers based on who's here so far. So yeah, I think McLaren, I can't remember where they finished in the standings last year. But yeah, I don't think they're going to completely fall back as many others might be guessing right now. Moving on in P10, I put Lance Stroll. Now, I don't want to read into the testing and all that too much, but I can't deny it. Aston Martin looked good. Their car looks completely different. They've got Fernando there now. They've got, I can't remember who their new technical director is, but it's very, very clearly a very new car, and there's a lot of hype around them. It can't be denied. So, of course, between the two drivers, I have to put Stroll at the back. He's kind of my boy. I know I've got his hat back here, but yeah, Stroll in P10. He's going to have himself solid races. Like I know he's struggled last year in qualifying, but if he's got a better car, he's going to put it together. He'll be smooth enough, hopefully, and he should just find himself potentially scoring like low points consistently every race. He did that somehow last season, and then Aston Martin looked way worse than it does this year. So that's why I can see him reasonably being around P10. In P9, I've put Lando Norris. So, like I was talking about earlier, I don't think McLaren's going to move down, but I don't think they're really going to move up either. Lando, I know last year was he best of the rest? I know he was the only driver not in the big three to get a podium, and I think he is going to continue to excel. His one-lap pace especially is just so good, and he's so consistent. He doesn't really make mistakes outside of, I was going to say outside of Russia, but he also did crash that one year in Belgium. Yeah. Lando Norris is clearly an elite talent in a midfield team right now, so that's why I can see him being P9. In P8, I've put Valtteri Bottas. Now, I think his last season was very underrated, and a lot of people put him on par with the show. I did not. I put Bottas way above. I think Alfa Romeo right now probably has anywhere between the 4th and 6th best car, but I think Valtteri's just always had that little bit of a consistency, and as long as they've got the reliability that Ferrari is promising, I can see Valtteri easily finishing P8. So that now leaves us to the best of the rest position, which kind of obvious the only choice remaining outside of the big three teams. I put Fernando Alonso. I'm buying into the hype. I think that Aston Martin looks great. I don't think it'll be a top 3 team quite yet. I still say that's another at least 2 years away when they get the new factory going and whatnot. But Fernando is so fast. He's absolutely so fast. And if Aston Martin brings that improved package, there's no reason why he can't be best of the rest. And every now and then maybe even compete for a podium, and crazy circumstances haven't happened like the Lando Norris situation in Imola. But outside of that, I don't really see anyone competing for podiums outside of the big three right now. So now it's just about putting the big three in order. I think everyone knows who the top team is. That's not really a surprise considering last year and then testing. But the next two are definitely can go really either way. But what I've done, I put George Russell in P6. I think he's a fantastic, consistent driver as long as he still has to get his racing etiquette a little bit better, avoiding instances and all that. But I don't think Mercedes is quite the level of Ferrari yet. So that's why I've simply gone with George Russell P6. And in the next case, I've put Carlos Sainz in P5. Now, clearly, I know no team wants to say it, but these two drivers are just both the number 2 drivers within their team. There's no denying it. They're both fantastic, but yeah, so that's why I put Carlos P5. I think between the two of them, I think Mercedes and Ferrari will be close, like they were, especially towards the end of last year. But I think Ferrari is going to just have that ever so slight edge. in the fact that they don't seem like they're like down yet. Mercedes still feels very much like they're on the back foot. So that's why I think there could be a little bit of a development pain for Mercedes. But I still put Carlos in P5 and Hamilton in P4. He's clearly still very, very, very much an elite talent. I know the first third of his last year was just rough. There's no way to put it. Like, I was very much on the team of Mercedes looks bad, Hamilton looks worse, time to retire. But he clearly pulled it out the second half of the season. Excuse me. He clearly pulled it out the second half of the season. Was just absolutely fantastic. Brought it to Russell. I wouldn't say he was way above him, but I think he was slightly better and could have easily gotten that win with the right strategies in either, I want to say USA or like even Brazil. If he didn't have that little bit of contact with Verstappen, it could have been a very good battle to the end. But I can't remember. I did measure the race pace, and I want to say Hamilton was slightly better than Russell that race. But yeah, I think this could be a year. Mercedes, I think they will compete for wins this year. I don't think this is going to be last year where they're just like so far behind. I think there's going to be the odd race this year where they're up there. Maybe not consistently, but they are going to have the odd race here and there. So moving on to P3, I've put Charles Leclerc. I don't think Ferrari has the car to compete for the championship this year. Red Bull just looks too strong. Second half of last year, now through testing, I can very much just see why Red Bull is so optimistic, so confident right now. Like, it's hard to deny that. It looks like they've got the best car. It looks like they're going to run away with the championship again this year. So that's why I've got to put Leclerc P3. I know he was battling for the championship and then had to battle for P2 up until the final race. I don't think he's going to get that opportunity this year. So that's why I've put in P2 this year. I don't think it's any real shock, but I've put Checo. I don't think anyone's going to battle against Verstappen this year. It's going to be a boring season in that regard. And especially like within inter-team orders, Christian Horner and all of them, they're never going to deny Verstappen. They have to stay kind of on his good terms still to keep him around, since there's even starting to be reports that Verstappen doesn't want to stay in F1 long term, which honestly I can believe it. He's definitely competitive, but he clearly has other interests in other racing series and he's noted that he doesn't want to be super old when he goes there. So I think Red Bull still very much has to keep themselves on Max's good side. So that's why I put Max P1. Yeah, I know I'm already talking about it while I still had Checo's picture up. But yeah, it's just fairly obvious. Red Bull has the top car. It's just going to be a matter of team orders and how much Perez is willing to get out of the way, which I don't think he's going to as much this year. But he still will. Checo's going to probably try and play the team role. He doesn't want to lose his seat. Like, because I think if Checo loses his seat, I don't know if there's anywhere else to turn. Like, I don't think there's going to be a Daniel Ricciardo situation where he can just leave and go to Renault if he decides he wants to. I think if Checo loses his seat, it's going to be hard to find one at this point. So that completes my full driver order. So let's move into the constructors. It's fairly obvious based on the way I've been talking and the way they're lined up here, but I've lined them up like this. So Red Bull, they're going to run away with it. Ferrari, they're going to edge out Mercedes just a bit, and then I think Aston right now is the clear choice for number 4. I think it can, in my opinion, it could be literally any one of these 4 right here. They could go in any order, if I'm being completely honest, but I think Fernando has the edge. I think they've got probably the best car, and even if Lance doesn't really perform, I think as long as the car is reliable, Alonso's going to absolutely drag them to at least P4 in the constructors. McLaren, I think they've just got a nice consistent pairing. Alfa Romeo, they've got the better car than McLaren, I think, but I think Zhou's going to drag them down a little bit. Alpine, like I said, they were just kind of stale. Doesn't seem like they've really developed too much, so that's why I think they're going to just drop back a little bit. and without the performance of Fernando, and if they don't solve the reliability issues, I can see them dropping down all as far as P7 easily. Okay, so continuing on now with the bottom three, I've put AlphaTauri P8. I could see them or Haas really switching spots anyways. I don't think there's going to be huge changes from last year. There wasn't really huge changes in the technical regulation, so I don't think the order is going to change too much. But I do think AlphaTauri will continue to make developments, while Haas is going to struggle like they always seem to do. Historically speaking, I know they've got money now, but money doesn't equal results. And then Williams just in P10. I think Williams will get better. I have a lot of faith in James Vowles and all of the stuff he's gonna bring over from Mercedes. I don't know if I didn't read any of the articles well enough, but I know he's already spoken about how there's a huge contrast between Williams and Mercedes. So I think he's already starting to see the changes that he needs to make, and I think once he gets that in place, maybe what's the year now? So maybe in 2024, 2025, I could see Williams starting to climb back up. That's why I know I actually in my my silly season predictions, I thought that they might even be able to pursue someone like Valtteri Bottas, because the history between James and Valtteri, I could see them getting a little bit more competitive, for sure. But it's not going to be this year. They need another regulation change, or some sort of dramatic improvement, such as Aston Martin have had. Maybe we'll see who they get in their technical department. Yeah, we'll have to just wait and see. But overall, these are my preseason predictions. I don't think any of these are really too bold, but let me know where you think I'm completely wrong, and who do you have where? I'm very curious myself to see if anyone's opinion lines up with mine. And thank you very, very, very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button, or follow me on any of the social medias that have been circulating down here. Yeah, thank you very much.